you're trying to figure out how to work with luxury clients, let alone celebrities, you definitely came to the right place. We're going to have some fun today. I'm bringing on Holly Meyer Lucas. She absolutely kills it in Florida, and she works with some very high profile people, but she's going to teach you more than just those tips and tricks. She's going to really teach you how to lead effectively, how to rebuild from the ground up, and how to niche down effectively. If you are brand new to this channel, I'm your host, Justin Konikow. This is the Prime People podcast, where I connect you with amazing people that show you how they got to where they got to and give you direct access to them. You can interact in a few different ways. You can jump into the comments, let us know who you are and where you're from. There's a pile of people here right now. Monique Assoulin, nice to see you. Kendrick Richardson, what's up, buddy? Olivier Maurice, Mike Pistorius. I also see Jason Mitchell and Patrick Madigan, and the one and only Matt Lamarsh is here as well. Holly is a beast. I've spent literally probably hundreds of hours in the same spaces as her on an app called Clubhouse, and it's actually led to referral business. I am sending people from London, Ontario, Canada, down to Jupiter, Florida, and that whole Western area. And it's great to be able to bring these connections live to you. Make sure you smash that subscription and that notification button. And if you're in the Prime Practical and Tactical group, you'll be able to get a StreamYard link. We may have some surprise guests that pop in to connect with Holly and ask her a question in person. It's one of the best ways to grow relationships online. And then the next time you're in West Palm or Jupiter and you want to hang out and have Holly Meyer show you the town, you will know who she is because you saw her on this podcast. But let's get right into it. I am fired up about this one. Welcome to the Prime People podcast, where we cover all things that got us to where we are today, our team building strategies, the marketing and sales tips that we've learned through thousands of transactions, productivity tips, ways to really just hold yourself accountable to accomplishing what you want to accomplish, and all things content creation, personal development, and not to mention we have some of the best guests on the planet. We definitely do. And today your guest is Holly Meyer Lucas. Holly, how are you doing?
What's up? How are you?
Good. You have developed quite a powerhouse team down south, and you even have your own Meyer system that you operate. Like you're really using everything I talked about in the pre-roll content, media, sales strategy to really cut your own kind of path through the industry. So why don't we give people a 30,000 foot view snapshot of where you are and what you do currently?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in Jupiter, Florida. South Florida, which always has a lot of content. It's not lost on me. We have waterways and beaches and golf courses. And so it's pretty easy to get content here, right? But I lead a team of about 20 agents. We have a support staff. I am with a brokerage, but I always say we're kind of like a teamridge. I have my own office, my own environment. And yeah, I just love leading people, training people. And I mean, I feel like that's how you and I really connected. Like we really have that in common.
Well, yeah, let's go back to kind of ground zero. Clubhouse was a sketchy place when you started on it. Lots of fake life coaches and people that no substance, right? But then you'd be in a room of hundreds of people and you'd hear these voices here and there. And it was people like yourself that were ideating, right? And you're a principal at Compass, which is very interesting because I really respect what Compass has done as a brand. I remember we were traveling down the East Coast. We were in the Hamptons and I walked into the Compass office and I'm like, the logo, the look, the style, how does that fit in with your personal brand? And like you said, that the aspect that you're kind of partnered with them versus the old school brokerage model.
Yeah, it's a good question. So we were actually with EXP in 2017. So like early days EXP, and I loved EXP's model. But Compass, they were just kind of getting off the ground here in South Florida. And I actually had a meeting so they were in Miami, and I'm between Miami and Orlando, if you're familiar with how Florida's laid out. Long story short, I had a meeting with Rob Refkin, the CEO of Compass, directly. And I was like, you need to be, if you're in the Hamptons and Beverly Hills, you need to be in Palm Beach. And I remember this clear as day. He sat there and he went, okay, we'll do it. And so that quick decision making as an entrepreneur, like he had the full power to be able to say yes. And he just in the room was like, all right, yeah, we'll do it. You can do it. So we were the first agents in Palm Beach County, which is, it's one of the biggest markets in the country for Compass. So my motivation at the time was because of the sports and entertainment dynamic with Compass. But it's the tale as old as time. The brokerage, it matters because you need to feel good about it, and you have to you need to feel good about your brokerage regardless, right?
But, 100%. Yeah, I think the reason that I like bringing that up is I'm brokerage agnostic, right? We have prime real estate up here in Canada, but we just have a culture and a system that works well for the people that are a fit for this system. But it's an industry where it's been so fascinating for so many years, where people have kind of held back, and the brand side of things, it's almost like if you're wearing this logo or you're on this team, it defines you. Where now I think the people are the equity, and I'm looking at people like yourself, and you're aligning yourself with different brands and brokerages because that's what fits your corporate culture and the niche that you're in. But let's tackle that first, because when we were talking about this episode, you're like, oh, here are like 3 main topics that we can crush, and they were exactly what I wanted to talk about. Niching down, talk athletes, sports and entertainment. Like, that's a very interesting niche. Like, how did you find that niche and how did you develop it?
So it's funny, when I first got my license, I thought that, so I grew up in Germany. And so my dad's German, I speak German. And so I thought that I was coming out of a career in medical sales. I sold big capital information systems to hospitals. And I thought that my niche was going to be people in the healthcare industry, because that was my professional background, and then Europeans. And it turns out, I think I've maybe sold we've sold almost 1,000 homes. So maybe 50 to people that are European, which is crazy. But it's funny because everyone that speaks German speaks English perfectly. So it's like the most moot skill ever. But I knew that I wanted to double down on something, like have some kind of niche. And the biggest reason was because I looked at our landscape as like, how am I going to be different? I'm going to be different because I'm brand new. Like, that's not great. But you have to differentiate yourself, whether you're the person that just does a great job, then quadruple down on being the agent that does a great job. Like, it can literally be as basic as that. My niche, sports and entertainment, came because my husband is a professional baseball player, and or he was at the time. And so my sphere actually was athletes and their financial advisors, their agents, their wives. And I actually avoided that sphere like the plague. One of my things, and Justin, you and I have talked about this, but one of my, I scream this from the rooftops. I post about it on social media at least once a year. I do not work with friends. I hate it. I hate working with friends. I don't need your business. I need your friendship. I post about it once a year. And it's funny because every time I do, some friend sidebars me and is like, well, I want to sell my house. Like, will you work with me? So I was avoiding it because those relationships matter, right? Like, do you like working with friends?
It's one of those things too, where I'll clearly define what the relationship is, right? I tell them, I'm happy to work with you, but this is our structure and our system, and it has to be a fit on both sides. I also think agents that are so desperate to work with anybody that it's diluted our industry. So we've created something where we will work with friends, but we definitely want to put some parameters around, hey, if I'm talking to you with my real estate hat on here and, you need to have a conversation with me, I can compartmentalize that. And you're still my friend, independent of those conversations. I think that's where some people, if it gets too close, have a hard time separating it, and you get fired, and then all of a sudden you're not friends anymore. Well, you weren't really friends to begin with, in my mind, right? But
that's true. That's true.
If you can work together towards a common goal and stick through the tough times, I think you can develop some pretty good relationships.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, my best friends work with us. Like, it's more just like this blanket statement, giving my sphere the ability to hire someone else. Like, if someone else has the same opinion, then, like, one of my best friends just hired another agent that we actually helped her. Like, I helped her what she should ask, all the things. And I love that, because that's, like, at the end of the day, one transaction, like, when you first get into real estate, me saying this to myself 7 years ago, I'd be like, what, are you insane? But anyway, so.
Well, no, I'm going to pause you there. I want to drag you into like 5 Facebook groups I'm part of, because what you just showcased was integrity, right? Yeah. I talked about how in this industry, like, buyers and sellers think we're so thirsty to work with them that we're a dime a dozen. And I do think we're going to a shift too, where highly skilled people can not have to work with everybody and say, hey, like, I can be as selective about my clients as you are about agents. And sometimes if it's not the right fit, go work with somebody else, because I would rather maintain a high level of integrity and friendship than just become your lapdog if that's what you're looking for, right? So it really depends on the relationship, but having the integrity to feel happy for somebody that they win versus so worried about counting your money and basing relationships on money. I think that's the separation between you and a lot of agents.
I couldn't agree more. My thing with it, actually, the reason I identified it was because one of my friend's husbands made a comment. I was at one of my kids' birthday parties, and or one of my kids' friends' birthday parties, whatever. My friend's husband said, oh, it's like shooting fish in a barrel here for you. I'm sure everyone wants to talk to you about, because the home market was getting kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
I was in the middle of a conversation about home values, and I just stood there and looked at him, and I was like, every single person here, I can almost guarantee, is not thinking that. But the one person that is, or the 5 people that might be, like, I don't want to be the person navigating a kid's birthday party with people thinking that, like, I'm here helping you with your home value because I want your business. Like, please, I need your friendship, not your business, right? And so I freed myself of, I'm pretty outspoken about this because I think that when agents get into the real estate world, everyone gets into real estate. Did you start your career in real estate?
I fought my wife tooth and nail. I told her I did not want to be a greaseball on a golf course. My wife is an amazing human being. She saw something in me I didn't see in myself, and she tricked me into getting my license and then tricked me into opening an office. And now I'm really happy. So thank you, Shannon.
She sounds like a closer.
You'll meet her, and my daughter Faith. She is definitely a closer. She's interesting because she's, I'm the face and I'm the one that you see a lot and the one that you hear on Clubhouse. She's the brains of the operation, super smart, MBA from the Ivy Richards School of Business, ran a consulting firm, like one of the first dealer principals in Canada with her mom for Ford, powerhouse, but she likes her privacy and she likes kind of the behind the scenes stuff, which she's very good at.
Yeah. Have you taken the Enneagram ever?
No, never. No, two of my mentors sent it to me, but I haven't done it yet.
You're a 7 for sure.
Okay.
Opposite. That's how that yin and yang, like you just described it exactly, like the behind the scenes, like okay with being, prefer being behind the scenes. Yeah.
Well, no, I was going to touch on something too, because I think working with celebrities and luxury clients and high profile people, one thing I have noticed, I choose to not always be in all of the places and all of the networking events and always going to all the events with these people, because there is a certain amount of mystique and exclusiveness to what me and Shannon do. And I think that there's a certain amount of, privateness, if that's even a word, but people respect privacy, and working with those types of people, you can't be the person running around a party handing out cards, because then you look like the cheeseball real estate agent. Like, I actively don't talk about real estate, and then people ask me because they just know that's what I do, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so, yes. And again, it's like 9 times out of 10, it's not a thing. But then the one time when it is, it's usually also with the person that will call it out, or that it just, the privacy thing. I mean, yeah, that's a whole ball yarn. So with niching down, we're gonna derivative back into this. So with niching down, with any business, in order to be successful, in my opinion, you have to be able to define why you're different. And again, your reason why you're different is because you're good at it. Like that, I feel like someone should take that and I'm a good realtor. That's what I'm good at, right? It can be anything. If you're the son of a plumber, you could, plumbing could be your, I know plumbing inside and out. Like anything could be your thing.
Sure.
So with the athletes, it's a world that I didn't have to necessarily break into because I was married into it. It's not lost on me. Like, my friends have been, and our sphere has been so supportive of my business. It's like, you sell one home, you get connected with their sports agent, you sell another. And so when I talk about it, it's not necessarily in the world of, or in the, with the message being like, go find a NFL husband,
for sure.
Identifying your niche and providing value to your niche. Right. So like, if someone gets called up, for example, and they need to buy a home, or they're relocating and they're an athlete family, I know the drill with that because I know it very well.
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. I think, some of the key points just we're talking about are just what are the things that matter to the people that you're serving, rather than what matters to you as the agent. Everybody wants to talk about luxury real estate as if that's the answer, but it's about treating every client like they're a luxury client and finding out what are the things that matter to them in that sphere that you happen to be in. It probably is, level of access and respecting the relationships and not being so, again, thirsty for the business will probably lead to that trust and developing your skill set. We are going to get into that in a bit, because I want to go through your journey in real estate, because you shared something with me that I think will inspire a lot of people, because it ain't always easy. But Matt Lamarsh is on the road, and I know he had a question for you, so I'm going to bring him on here so we can all chop it up. Matty, what's going on, dude? His camera has flipped. It's all good. This is live. This is reality. So it's all
Holly,
good.
thanks so much for doing this real quick. Just a quick question for you. If you were advising a new agent or someone maybe that's even been in the business for a little while as to like how to break into this space, what would be your 2 or 3 tips?
In terms of breaking into like the sports and entertainment niche, that space?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good question. Okay. So this is the advice that I give. Do not focus on the athletes themselves or the wives. I do so many transactions where I almost talk to them like last. The high performing, high achieving athletes and entertainers have, I use the word gatekeeper and I always put air quotes around it because in our industry, sports entertainment, that can be derogatory, whatever, I say it. The gatekeepers are the agents, the financial advisors, the wealth managers, the family offices. Those are the ones, if someone's making a real estate purchase, those are the ones that are going to be referring you as the real estate agent. Because what happens is when anyone is buying a house, I don't care if it's the next door neighbor's house, they're going to call the athletes and entertainers. They're going to call their advisor and they're going to say, hey, I need help buying a house. What should I do? Who should I call? And then the advisor is going to recommend you. It's very, very rare that you are going to meet an athlete at a club, like save your money, don't buy the bottle. That is not how you get them. You go to the events, you network with the agents. The agents' relationships are worth their weight in gold because here's why: they see right through bullshit. And so when you have the opportunity to be in front of a wealth manager or an agent, and when I'm saying agent, you guys all know I mean sports agent, not real estate agent. Giving it the full send and asking for the business and asking for the referral is almost what they want. Like you almost want to give it the full send when you're talking to them so that they can then advocate for you when they're recommending you to Michael Jordan. I always use Michael Jordan as the example because he's like so like it's the name I can drop because it's so unattainable, right? Like to me, he's like the most famous person in the entire world. So good question.
Good advice. Thank you.
I appreciate you coming on, Matt.
You're seeing your guys' faces. I feel like we're like audio only.
That's
tripping me out.
That's right. We'll catch you later, Matt. I'm going to kick you off now for now.
Appreciate
All right, brother? Yeah, no, I mean, I think that was great advice, is getting to the point. I think a lot of people, they like to beat around the bush and they like to build out these extensive plans of how they're going to get to people. But I mean, a lot of times people's time is very valuable. And I think a 9-word email or less is more in that circumstance is absolutely key. Jason says, go Bulls. Jason Mitchell dropped in. That's funny. Yeah, there's a lot of people here. Peter, nice to see you as well, too. And I also see another Facebook user question. Facebook user Eric's going to drop something in the chat in Facebook that will allow us to see who you are. If you want to drop your name, by all means. But it says, do your friends refer you business through that network as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the reasons why I started my team to begin with was to create like a separation, a buffer between me, if I'm understanding the question correctly, between me and my friends. And it creates an escalation point when you are a leader of a team. I always say, like, if you're starting out in the business and you have ambition to be a leader, start a team, because it creates a structure where the agents on your team can escalate things to you and you can resolve things as like a neutral. Does that make sense? Like that escalation point, it's so valuable. So yeah, they refer me. Honestly, when I started putting out there that I really strongly prefer to have my friendships, not their business, it like, I feel like my business exploded when I started saying that, because it also gave permission to my friends who don't want to work with me to refer me.
Sure.
So like when my name comes up or when a real estate opportunity comes up in a room of opportunity, you want your friends to go, you need to hire Holly. We worked with someone else, doesn't matter, but you should hire Holly. Here's why. Not necessarily fighting for their business, you know?
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. I'm going to an event tonight that is literally the culmination of the people in my community supporting me and putting me in a position where they're talking about when I'm not even there. And that's literally what I was going to talk about in the speech that I'm going to give tonight, is like, it's literally not even me. It's all of them talking to each other that, you know, their fingerprints are on the work that I do. And I truly think that community is everything. I think of people like you, right? I think of people like Matt and Go Fish. I see a ton of other people. I saw Jed Mabry's here and a bunch of other people, and like all of their fingerprints are on my business. So why wouldn't you want to create a community of abundance where they don't have to necessarily feel like you're always chasing them for business? You touched on the team thing, was actually going to be my next progression anyways. When you're working with somebody, and I just went through this with you, like I brought you one of my AAA clients. What's up, Kyle? I sent him down to your team and you're like, actually, this person on my team is the perfect fit to handle that. I made the intro to your partner and they're doing their thing. Like, what does that transition look like when people maybe want Holly, but you're not necessarily the best fit for that person? I do feel like people don't necessarily understand that dynamic.
Yeah, this is probably, I mean, if you're a real estate agent or a team leader, this is problem 101. And it's not that unique to our industry. So law firms have this where like they want the partner, they want, you know, sometimes it's just, you just want the person whose name is on the door. So you have to be very clear about your boundaries. So behind the scenes, agent to agent, like I'm going to tell you the actual best fit for this is probably going to be Katie, right?
Yeah.
And so because you and I are comfy in that way, right? If you and I weren't at that level and you were like, I need like the best person, and the best person is, you know, the perception is that it's me.
I know you, right? Because I see your face, right?
Like so I've gotten really, really comfortable with explaining how time works in real estate. So in real estate, if I am out with buyers from 9 a.m. to noon, showing them homes back to back to back, and then I have to come back to the office and handle something or help a team member with something, they are actually going to be the priority. It's impossible for me to prioritize correctly. And I walk the person through what my day looks like, setting the expectation that if you are okay with us looking at homes in the morning, me triaging something that happened at 9, and then you getting a response at 9 p.m., then I would love to work with you. But I'm just setting the expectation so I am not a bundle of stress, not being able to help the commitments that I made then for noon, right?
Yeah.
And they usually, like, if you lay it out like that, like just crystal clear that they're only 24 hours in the day, right? So then I then say there's a member on my team who is hungry, they're newer, they have my backing, nothing happens in this environment without me knowing about it. And then I swiftly package it up. We start a text thread with the agent, myself, and then my chief of staff, and away they go. It's so rare that I need to still be the real estate agent for that reason, where they need, like, the ego needs, or for whatever reason they need me to be.
Yeah, no, I see it all the time too, right? Like that's kind of the blessing and the curse. I told you the dynamic between Shannon and myself. Like, Shannon, can we switch roles? Because I'm the one that's kind of out there. But a lot of times I have very frank conversations with people. And I've only really had one out of the hundreds of transactions that we've been doing where he just didn't get it, right? He's like, well, I don't want him to respond to me. I'm like, okay. And this guy was in the landscaping business. I'm like, okay, when I hire you to landscape my backyard, I'm hiring you for your expertise. I'm hiring you for your access to pricing, and you're just going to get me the best end product, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, so this is the same thing. I'm like, maybe I have a guy in an excavator on your front lawn right now. That doesn't mean that I'm disconnected from the transaction. It means I'm focusing on the highest level task that I can make an impact on your bottom line, which is negotiations, analysis, finding you off market deals, not necessarily opening a door, being at an inspection. Again, same as you, I'm privy to every single thing that happens, but it's the dichotomy of, and I guess the age of the celebrity agent, where people are attracted to agents because of the celebrity that agents are chasing right now. But again, I gravitate to people like you because you're an actual expert at your business, more so than you are chasing the TikTok fame and just the celebritization of our industry, right? So let's talk about your team. You know, how did you grow a team? What do you think is critical in the leadership position to keep an organization operating at a high level in a competitive market like West Palm?
Yeah. So I started my team kind of by accident. I started at KW, and I was on like floor time, and I just got my license. And there was a come list me call that came into the office, which like that never happens in an environment like that. And not against KW, but just like a floor time, whatever. And I went.
Maybe that's a listing calling you right now, but no, you got somebody to answer that.
Well, so I'll get there in a second. But so I went on the listing appointment, and during the listing appointment, I was talking in terms of we, because I basically like panicked. I realized that like it makes me so uncomfortable to talk about myself if I'm like in the raw. I step into like Sasha Fierce mode if I need to. I feel like you and I have that in common, where I'm like, no, I want to hear about you. Like, tell me about, you know. Anyway, so I started giving it the full send that this we was going to sell their house. And then I got back in my car and I was like, what am I talking about? Like, I was like, we will send you whatever. So I went back to the office at Keller Williams, and there was a girl there. Her name's Savannah. She was like 19 years old. And I was like, do you want to help me? Like, I just got a listing. Like, do you want to like be on my team? And I kind of like sold it to her as if I had this like team in the works too. And I had been licensed for, just literally a split second. But at its core, it's this story. I think there are people that are just team people in general. Like, have you always wanted to? I just gravitate.
We don't even have a team. Like, the way that I look at it too is we have a culture and a platform, and sometimes we work on stuff together, sometimes we don't. Like, I'm not a task driver per se, where like they have to wear my logo and I have to, like, everything revolves around Justin. I want to create an environment where I don't have to feel like I'm trying to just keep them here and stop them from going anywhere else. I just want to attract people and create such a good environment. They don't want to go anywhere else. And if they do, it just means we're not a fit anymore. That's cool too. It doesn't bother me. Right. So
that's really cool. And how, I'm trying to stop. It's so dark. That's a big difference between our businesses. I always forget about that. Like you encourage their own branding and right. Like doubling down on their identity. Right.
Well, I said, so we had Prime, and then what I did was Prime actually used to be Justin Konikow, which is my wife and I's names. And then we're like, okay, it's getting bigger than us. And like, if Mark goes into a listing, they're going to be like, where's Justin? Where's Konikow? So we changed it to Prime, which happened at us sitting at the pier in Grand Bend watching boats come in. And we're like, if we had a boat, what would we call it? My wife goes, Prime Real Estate. And I'm like, that's a great name for a company. Texted my lawyer. I'm like, there's no way this is available. And it was. We trademarked it. And we got the name. Yeah, it was crazy, right? I'm like, what are the chances?
Funny, when we were talking about your hat the other day, which by the way, fire hat, the word Prime is such a good freaking word. It's so good. It's like it has the I in the middle. It's such a good word, right? And
we will send you this one for taking care of my clients. So I'll have the team send you that.
Yeah. Let's go. But I love that your name isn't in it. That's my next step. I have to figure out how to get my name out of our brand. We use the Meyer lemon is my logo, and we use lemons for everything. So I'm putting the bee in your bonnet there to help me figure out how to.
It's honestly, you just got to make the decision. Like, it's such a big thing because we're so close to it, but your branding is fire. I'm just going to share your website so people can actually go to it and find it as well too. This is the beach in Grand Bend where I live with my beautiful wife, and we have beaches in Canada, but it's frozen right now. Let me just actually pull up the screen. This is your branding, super slick. Like, in my opinion, I think you can still ride with it and do what you want to do. But if you do want to make that change, I think it's just not overthinking it, right? Finding an association or a word that really speaks to who you are and just leaping and making the jump, because that's what Shannon and I did. But going back to your
word, Prime is so it's so good. I need a word like that.
Yeah, well, it worked too, because then we started the production company, and it was like, well, Prime Media Productions, and then Prime Media Agency, and now Prime People. Like, it's very simple, right?
Like, that's so
good lawyer that we have too. But anyways, we were going back to kind of the team conversation, and then I realized that like my brand was linked with Prime, right? So I was like, I got to pull them apart, because Prime is a platform. It's not a brokerage. We don't recruit. It's a platform and an ecosystem for people to work in. So Justin is part of that, but I'm going to have my own brand identity, and Mark's going to have his, and Betty's going to have hers, and Taylor's going to have hers, and we're all different, right? And so we do want to encourage the personal branding. The platform is merely like, you see the Prime logo, there's a certain level of excellence, you're getting, or expertise. That's really what it is. Just like you see a Nike logo on an athlete, they're sponsored by a company. They probably have some type of skill set that got them to that place, right?
Yeah, I love that. That's almost the inverse of what we have, what I have going on over here. So my team, we keep it to 20 people by design. We have a wait list the size of Texas for people to join. My chief of staff vets agents who want to join us pretty heavily. We have 5 key core characteristics that we need them to hit, whatever.
What are your core characteristics? Could you share? I'd love to know.
Yeah. So we have hustle muscle. So you have to be Johnny on the spot, hustle muscle. You have to be savvy / smart. So if you're not book smart, you got to be street smart. You have to be like-minded, meaning you have to, if I say Istanbul, you have to know that that's in Turkey. Like, it's, again, back to the client-based thing, right?
Sure.
You have to have integrity. And by that, I mean, the question that Holly, my chief of staff, asks herself when she goes through an interview is, and this is actually a good segue, is if this person leaves the team, what story do they tell? Whether it be like because they were fired or because they left on their own, like what type of integrity do they have in terms of the liability, then also for us?
Mm-hmm. That's a super interesting characteristic to be paying attention to. And I actually respect that you have that built out.
It's critical for a business like mine because I sell homes that are substantial. I work with people that are very famous. And for us, so I attract people who want to learn from our ecosystem, and they want to be a part of the funness of our brand. So it's different than yours. Like we attract the people that want to join our team, and the people that we attract are people that want to learn and and not necessarily develop their own, like they don't necessarily, like they want to be a part of a brand that's already strong, if that makes sense. And so protecting that is something I've learned the hard way. And so, yeah, it's super, super important. Do you have people?
Go ahead.
What's your turnover like over there?
It's not bad, honestly. So we're 26 now. There's been a few people that haven't fit our culture, and I think we're more alike than you would know, because ours is honesty, integrity, and intelligence, right? Energy, integrity, and intelligence. Everything else I can teach, right? If you're energetic and you can show up and you want to be consistent.
The fifth one is high energy.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think that we are very protective of our brand and the types of people that we bring in. It's almost by referral only, right? So when I say we don't actively recruit, we don't. But there's sometimes where people in here, so people that are in our culture are like, hey, this person just got licensed, or my family member's this or this or this, and I think they'd be a really good fit. That's typically how they get access to Prime. Not like, hey, I'm just sending in a random email, although a couple of those have snuck through, typically because they are more than just an agent. Like Victor Addis, the condo king on my team, he sold high-end bikes for Louis Garneau, understood the retail industry. He was a pro mountain cyclist and everything else. Very, very interesting. Alex Bejnaru, she was a gymnast. Her family runs a very successful small business in gymnastics, very disciplined, structured. Again, the certain avatar and profile that fits our brokerage. And, there are different tiers probably within Prime. I like how you turn this into an interview on me.
I was going to text you yesterday. Like, can I just interview you? I feel like
we'll do that on your podcast down the road. Yeah. But no, like what I've noticed is we have some people, and depending on the stage of life they're in, they're sometimes very, very close to like the core Prime and working collaboratively on some huge projects that we're working on. And sometimes they need a break or they want to work on some stuff on their own. And just like a friend, like if you disappeared for a year and came back, you're like, hey, Justin, what's going on? I wouldn't be like, sorry, Holly, you didn't talk to me for a year. We're not friends anymore. It is a family here, but there's a dynamic probably between the core team that are working on the current active projects and then people that are doing other stuff. But the other people are always welcome in, depending on timing and when they have the aptitude and the capacity. What I will tell people, though, I'm going to pull your Instagram up again too. So everybody go follow Holly on her Instagram. I would say that what's really cool about the dynamic, and when I'm looking at your team and your friends, is you guys do act like a family. I saw one recently. I don't know if I can pull it up here, but the dynamics of you and your team at your properties, there is a certain kind of energy and a culture, right? And I think you've done a really good job developing that within your organization. How do you maintain it? Maybe what challenges have you gone through developing that culture?
Yeah, it is. So it is a family, and it's when you join our ecosystem, you're joining a real fragile ecosystem. Fragile because I have had the bad egg that has just turned things on its head. When you have a whole group of people, the reason I keep it at 20 is because the shenanigans that ensue when you have, something going sideways. Our business is weird, man. Like literally, my business is, and this is true for so many teams. People call the office with come list me opportunities. People will text me, hey, I'm buying a $5 million house, saw you on Instagram. And my time is I am rarely in production anymore, right? So sure. I have to make the decision and the call for who is going to get that business. So the example, you're the person that you sent us, I have to make that call. Now let's say that person was a $40 million buyer, which this has happened. Making that call is really hard for me. And let's say my bandwidth is where I can't do it myself. And I would never do that myself either. I bring my team in on a lot of, Me too. Yeah, I love it. I feel like fun, I can say that.
Right?
It's authentic. When I do that, I am the shirt off my back because I prefer it that way. Like I want everyone to eat. Anyway, so with the team structure, my thing is working with celebrities and athletes, right? So we attract people who are very sneaky and very good at masking what their intentions are. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, for a lot of people, it's their pitch to us in working here is, that they're a longtime Cardinals fan and they just would, they sold the house to whatever. Usually those people don't even get past the front door, but a lot of times they'll make it to the third or fourth interview stage. And then again, we make the call, like, what's their integrity like, right? So I keep it at 20 people specifically so that we can be a family and we can be a moving unit. Where was I headed with that? What was your question?
Well, it was just going through kind of those challenges, right? Because again, over the years, I find having tough conversations has led to my best people being here. Where, if we're having a discussion about client selection, this lead went to that person, that lead went to this person,
Yeah.
like they truly see the intention is never for me to, turn it into a competitive situation. A lot of times it's like, hey, I just noticed that you're completely overtaxed and absent from a lot of the things going on. I don't want to put any undue pressure on you, but if you're hungry, you let me know, we'll figure it out. Or you got two people involved in maybe one transaction layover, be like, bring them all in the conversation. Like, what's fair? Having the tough conversations keeps the best people around. I find it's when people aren't being transparent about their intentions or honest that, they typically wash out, and it's fine because I don't want them here anyways. Right.
Well, I learned this the hard way. So having the tough conversation is something that my personality type hates.
Yeah.
I hate having to tell people, and as a leader, you have to have the capacity to tell someone when they, like, if you're not comfortable saying you look fat, right? You would never say that to anyone, right?
Sure.
Right. For all the HR violations reasons, but you almost have to be comfortable with saying that if someone messed up, like something that's so hard to say.
Yeah.
And so I use that as an example when I talk about leadership stuff, because it's hard to find an example, like without like at its core, you look fat. Like that is so hard to say for some people when you care about someone, right?
Because you want to preface it with so many things like, hey, I care about you. I love you. Like, this is something that somebody needs to tell you. I'm not trying to insult you. Let's figure it out together, but not everybody's going to take it that way. Right.
Yeah, totally. So giving feedback as a leader, some of the best leaders who are my mentors are very good at being black and white. Some of the best leaders are also good at not having to have tough conversations. I know this about myself. I don't like to hurt people. And to me, giving tough feedback can sometimes be hurtful. So I have a chief of staff now she is literally my bad cop. And everybody knows this. Like, if something needs to be communicated, I will bounce it off of her and we'll figure out what the problem was. Like, if someone does something that, with a client or with a whatever, and we need to address it, I have a one-on-one conversation with her, and then she delivers the message, because it won't get diluted. It won't be back channeling. And I know this about myself. It's a huge weakness. So anyway, I learned this the hard way. So I started my team right when I first got licensed, and we immediately, I was doing all kinds of fun, ridiculous marketing things to attract business. So we were having car washes, and we were on the Intercoastal on paddle boards hosting open houses, and we had open house signs and just all this stuff that attracted immediately. I had a team of 15 within 6 months.
Yeah.
And through that process, three things. I didn't have my agent sign any kind of agreements for the first round of them. And I always tell anyone in leadership, if you're just starting out, I'm telling you, how you onboard someone is almost impossible to undo. Whatever expectations you set from jump, it's really difficult to go back and retroactively change those without giving the person the ability to leave.
Yeah.
And knowing that they probably will. So that's things like changing, obviously, changing the mechanics of their role, but changing your company too. So here's why this is important. As I grew, my first year, I sold $8 million in real estate, and I had a team of 15, right? It's absurd. So as I grew, and as I figured out what this real estate leadership thing was, I recognized that I needed a CRM. I needed systems. I needed people to sit on floor time. I needed an office. I needed an office manager. All of these things that became changes and change management. What would happen is I would for example, I would commit to a CRM, and I would commit to everyone needing to log things, and this is what we're going to do. And then I would get slivers of pushback from the peanut gallery, because I made myself accessible too. I was their friend, so I would hear well, she blah, blah, blah. Here's a funny anecdote about real estate too. The best salespeople hate the paperwork. We know this, right?
Yeah,
they're horrible at it. But the best leads are probably going to go to the best salesperson because they can close. And the paperwork, in my opinion, I've said this for years, paperwork should make it work. We'll figure it out later.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so when you make changes to your business, change management is something that I think is so underrated for startups. Really coaching yourself and getting yourself the personal development resources to learn how to make changes. And I'm saying process changes. For example, if the expectation is everyone's in the office at 9 and you now are changing it to 8, that's not an email. Even that much of a change, that is a one-on-one conversation with everyone. Hey, what is this going to do to your life? I know you committed here thinking that we were going to start at 9. And I'm really sorry to tell you this, but we are now starting at 8. What does that look like for you?
Mhm.
Well, how does that, right? How do I help mitigate that? Whatever. But starting Holly and starting Entrepreneur sends an email like effective this week.
We're doing this because you don't want
yeah.
tactile feedback. You just want to put it out there and expect people to do it, right?
Right. And as an entrepreneur, like opening at 8 o'clock is the change that I needed to do. I'm using this as an example.
Yeah, just as an example.
And so it's I think people get stuck in the messy middle. Have you heard of that book?
Yeah, I've heard of the book. I've never read it though.
So good. I'm reading it right now. It's so freaking good. But in the messy middle is really the way to describe it. You get stuck in second gear. It's like your sophomore season. Your freshman season, you're building, you have no idea what the hell you're doing. Your sophomore year, you know what you're doing. You know what you need to do, but you can't do it because you either don't have the capital or the balls to do it. That's like it, right?
Yeah.
So that messy middle and making the changes, for example, committing to hiring someone and paying for them, hiring help, like when you're starting out, I think every real estate agent makes this mistake where they hire a transaction manager because they see the big teams. Like that's the most exposed role because you'll do a deal with a big team and you'll see their transaction manager on the other side of the deal and you'll go, I want that. Like, because you're interacting with them on the other side, right?
Yeah.
And so then you hire someone this story is, I literally heard this from every single, that you hire someone who couldn't cut it as a realtor and you figured out the role for them because you like their personality. Like that is true for so many people. So going through that sophomore season and figuring out the changes you need to make it's just so important with team leadership because it separates the boys from the men at that stage. If you cannot make the changes and suffer the consequences of people getting pissed off, you won't grow otherwise. Is this resonating with you? Like, did you go through any of this?
Yeah, it does. I mean, we've gone through many shifts. We've made some recent ones lately too, right? As I see the landscape of the real estate industry changing, we were approached twice by companies for acquisition. So luxury brands came and wanted to buy market share, just buy our company and partner with us that way. And then we had three large. What's that?
Compass want to buy you?
Yeah, no, it wasn't Compass. It was two other large luxury brands. I don't know if Compass has a big presence here yet, but maybe they're next. But then there was two more virtual brands that came in and wanted to partner with us as well too. And we're not for sale because we're not a brokerage, and they don't really understand that, right? I think they look at us and they assume we are. But the point of what I'm saying is, as we grew, we kept looking back to our core why. And I talked to my wife about this on the way to the office today. I'm like, why are we doing what we're doing? Right? Because effectively, if it was just about making money, I would fire every agent at Prime right now, hire 2 more showing assistants, and I would just sell all my deals and I'd make a lot more money. Like they cost me money because I give them a lot, right? I'm like, that's not why we're doing it. We're doing it to change people's lives, right? Like take people and pull the best version of themselves out of it and show them what's possible with real estate as the vehicle, because you can sell a lot of properties, make a lot of money, but you only become wealthy through your relationships. You make money in real estate, but your relationships will give you investment opportunities that will change your life. So for us, it was always looking back. And I think you brought up a great point. Like you go through your sophomore year and then you start looking back, and then you move to a position of leadership because you kind of have to, and you start making tough calls, right? And you have to start making decisions knowing you're doing what's best for the future of your organization and the people that want to be part of it, independent of the daily advice, because a lot of times they're in it and they don't understand that you're thinking 3, 5, 10 years ahead. And a lot of what you're talking about doesn't seem to make a lot of sense now, but will in the future. And it's really, the more you realize that you can make those decisions tactically and then also identify how to communicate that with your core leadership team and roll that out, and also be able to listen to the feedback you get and make adjustments on both sides. So it's not just the Justin show, the people at Prime impact the culture. I think that's what's developed us to where we are today. Is we are literally a byproduct of our culture and our community, but our willingness to put our egos aside and be like, well, this isn't working anymore. If we're going to scale to a company that does 1,000 transactions a year, 10,000 transactions a year, we have to build that foundation. Does that make sense, Holly?
Yeah, absolutely. It resonates with me so much. And it's funny because, 7 years ago, that wouldn't have made sense at my core how it does now. I feel like I'm always like, I'm always qualifying, like, this is for real estate agents, like advice for real estate agents, advice for leaders, because what you just said it won't land with someone who hasn't been there and had the had to fall on the sword because the client needs to hear it from you, and you got to admit that you messed up to protect your brother. It's like there's just so much that goes into leading a team that you really don't learn until you've done it,
And not everybody needs to, right? Some people, I think they'll look at it and be like, I want to be that one day. Just like a lot of agents, they want the big agent count. They want the office count more for their egos. I know lots of people with big brokerages that make no money, and lots of people that you wouldn't even know that are the most impactful and profitable agents out there, right? I'm going to bring on Mr. Patrick Madigan. I know he had a question. P Mad, what's up, buddy?
What's up, guys? Justin, I miss you, man. Thanks for hosting this.
Yeah.
What's up, Holly?
How are you?
We're both in a sports entertainment referral group, and I love following you. I was going to ask you questions about that, but Matt Lamarsh already asked some. I wanted to hear about your mindset. What do you do when you wake up and you have a hard day, when you lose a $30 million listing appointment? How do you get back on the horse? How do you stay motivated? Is a morning routine? Do you have a happy place that you go to? I would love to hear about that.
That's such a good question. And in our hot market right now, I mean, it is brutal right now, straight across the country, right? It's shenanigans everywhere, right? So when I have a tough day, I remove myself. The first thing I do is I remove myself. And this happens every 90 days where I need to I just need a second, right? I remove myself from the office. I don't even come in on those days. So I'm not projecting my energy, because as a leader, when I walk through the building, so I have a 2-story office here. When I walk through the building, no matter how comfy my team is with me, they still change a little bit. They perk up a little bit. I've said this multiple times. So if my energy sucks, I don't even show up. The second thing is what really fills my cup, and echoing Justin with this, I could make so much more money if it was the United States of Holly, but that doesn't fill my cup. Part of what I earn as my salary, as my money, is I earn my cup being full. And what fills my cup is helping people, particularly women, leave careers they hate, learn something about real estate that is a family skill. And so I always go back to that place. And how I do it too is when I come to the office, our parking lot is a lineup of the cars of my agents, right? And it gives me it fills me up literally when I see the new cars that have been purchased on the back of a big commission check, minivan that was abandoned in the interest of the BMW. And this is not a materialistic thing. It's that is an environment that this building created. And it's almost I go through this motion of we're going to be fine. As long as I'm providing people with a skill, because that's what it is. I always say this, when you get into real estate, man, if you fail the first year, that is not a fail. You will know how to buy a house. Everyone needs a roof over their heads, right? There's no such thing as failure in real estate. You leave with an understanding of how to find a home for your family, right?
So you've kind of hacked this environment where if you're having a bad day, you just show up to work and it kind of cures it because of what's there at the environment.
Yeah, totally. It really,
That's awesome.
And I feel I can't say that to people that are not of the same, cut from the same cloth, right? Because there are people that wouldn't inspire them. But what do you do?
Yeah. Do you have any morning routine or anything that keeps you motivated? Are you a big workout in the morning? Are you a cold shower?
Yeah.
What kind of things do you do?
Yeah, good question. So I wake up really early. If I am not out of bed by 6 a.m., I feel my day is passing me by. And then I listen to some sort of podcast every single day. If you follow me on Instagram, I usually will post the whatever it is that I'm listening to. Today's listen. Yeah. And in fact, if you ever see anything that has landed with you, Justin, I feel you and I are always in the same headspace. Send it to me. I love it. So I listen to something on the way to the office to get my head right. That's my morning routine.
Yeah. I just found, speaking of women empowerment, have you heard of the Empire Builders podcast with Wendy Papazan and some other KW folks? I just found that a few weeks ago. It's amazing. It's blowing my mind right now.
I'm glad you said that. I forgot about that. Yeah.
So
thanks for the question.
Awesome. I'll leave you with that. Justin, thanks for the opportunity. Holly, I'm going to keep listening. Thanks for answering. Love you guys.
Yeah, it's all good, brother. Nice to see you, Patrick. Yeah, I love building community, right, and bringing people together and faces. Actually, I'm going to connect you, Holly, with Lindsay Gowan on my team. She has a Women in Leadership podcast. Interesting story, because as you're talking about the cars, she was an investor. She bought a tiny little condo, I think 86 grand. Flipped it, did the kitchen. She went to school for design. She worked at a cabinetry company, flooring company. She was an investor, right? Not even an agent. Mm-hmm. And we sold that for her. She crushed it. We did a duplex deal with her. And then she shows up one day at this big investment seminar that I was speaking at. And I just see like this energy about her. I'm like, you should go get your real estate license. I'd love to have like a designer on our team. Yeah. And she leaves, didn't even think about it. 8 months later, she's like, hey, I got my license. And I had forgotten I said that to her. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Good for you. And she's like, can I have a job? And I'm like, yeah, come on in. Right. She's awesome because like I watched her like get a new car this year. And as I watch her pull in the parking lot, I felt the same way as you. And I think it is mindset. I think that piece that you gave about morning routine and driving into the office, I used to listen to music or I used to listen to funny podcasts or whatever. Now it's always the same routine. And as I'm driving into the office, like I'm learning something or I'm thinking about something positive or I'm listening to real estate agents chop it up or I'm in clubhouse rooms. I'm trying to get pumped up for the day. And it does make a huge, huge difference. So I appreciate those insights. I'm going to get you through a rapid fire round of questions. We're coming up on an hour, so I'm going to let you get back to your day, but we will definitely do this again.
I talk to you forever, man. I love it.
Yeah, it's fun. And I think we've had many, many conversations. So you'll be a repeat guest for sure. What are you learning right now? I want to know, like, you obviously have your core skills, but there's something, is it like crypto or Web 3.0, or is it other selling techniques? Like, what is something that's interesting you right now that you're learning?
Oh, I love that question. So NFT stuff, I think if you're human, you should be figuring out what that is. I am really, really, really into leadership stuff.
Cool.
Like anything leadership related. Have you read Rocket Fuel?
I read, yeah, actually I bought it for my wife this morning because it's very pertinent to a stage that we're going through right now. Yeah, we have ourselves, but then we have a bunch of integrators underneath us and like we want to effectively communicate with them. So how do we do that? Right. So
yeah, that's kind of my thing right now.
Awesome. How has failure shaped your life?
Oh, failure is everything. Failure is literally, it is everything. A postmortem, if I could make my middle name postmortem, I would. Figuring out what the fail was and what I would have done different is like I lay in bed at night going, what did I mess up today? How would I have done it different? And I play the scenario in my head. I have done that for ever and ever and ever. I used to be a ski racer, and it's kind of a, like, if you have a bad race, you like are supposed to visualize yourself through it. And yeah, man, failure is the key to success. Absolutely.
Well, for the love of the game, because it seems like you don't attach yourself necessarily to the result, more the process, which is why I think you're successful. So the last most important question, is there something you're working on? Did you write a book? Anywhere I could push my audience, my platform is yours. I appreciate you making the time.
Oh, you're so sweet for asking that. No, there's not. They should comment on all of your stuff. You're so great.
You're so funny. Everybody go follow.
Wait, tell me, though, what are you learning right now, though? What's like your like a side interest in something?
Oh man, that's a tough question. You are very good at turning the interview around on me. I definitely think Web 3.0, right? Like I'm looking at the technology from a blockchain perspective, I think is going to change our industry because look at the efficiencies of contracts. If I send you a contract and you have your client signed it and you send it to your lender, you send it to your lawyer, they send it back to me. By the time we've gotten the document back, it may not even be the same document anymore, right?
Yeah.
And I think the inefficiencies of all these different apps and email, it needs to, even like Google Docs and Dropbox, they're not efficient because there's no ledger or, hey, this is the document we're working with. Everybody work on this document together. So like that is probably the one thing that I'm trying to figure out is how can we create a workflow where we can collaborate with our competition and all of the different people in the transaction that need their privacy maintained while maintaining the integrity of that actual digital document. That's what's I'm chewing on right now.
What's your like enterprise like what do you guys use internally? You like Dropbox, Drive?
Brokerment is transaction management. Google Workspace is all of our data management, which is Google Drive, Google Sheets, Google Documents, collaboration, emails, all that stuff. Follow Boss is our CRM. And then, I can go kind of down a wormhole in all of our other tech stuff, but those are like our main pillars.
One of the things so I have a design and renovation business that I own in addition to the real estate business, and it's those two going hand in hand is kind of similar to how your media company yeah. But with the media stuff, what do you use? Sorry, this is granular. You can end it right here. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I got to ask this though. How do you maintain your files? Like, and do you have
They're separate companies, right? So like two Google Workspace accounts.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Like, is it separate enterprise licenses, separate LLCs, separate everything, separate logins?
They're different people. Like the way that I treat my companies, if I was going to turn around and open a mortgage company tomorrow or a design company, It has to have its own independent operations manual, its own independent email address, workspace. It's a challenging sometimes because you're like, well, this person that's in this pillar needs to get information from this pillar, and like they don't need 2 different email addresses. And we have a couple of those floaters, but we're really trying to pull everybody apart and be like, no, you're in this company, you're responsible for this. You're in this company, you're responsible for this. So there's no cross dilution, because with the media company, people might get confused and think I'm running around doing that and it's pulling me away from real estate. My only focus is real estate. I just have really good people on the media side running that.
Yeah, I'm untangling that right now. I think like the biggest advice that I have for anyone is don't do what I did. Do what you just described. Like keep it, spend the money, the extra $12 a month for.
Well, I did what you did. I'd like even am still tied in a little bit with how that was integrated, right? But I think that's, again, the love of the game. You're looking at the way you're doing something, asking yourself, is it the most efficient way? And I've had agents bring me stuff internally being like, hey, the structure of how we're doing this or this or this, like I have some ideas. That is everything. Like if all my agents can get to the point where it's not, hey, Justin, how do I do this? It's like, hey, Justin, I did this. Is that okay? That's the ideal situation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt.
Well,
thank you so much for having me. So fun.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody go follow Holly. You can connect with her. She's super accessible, and I appreciate having you on. We'll definitely have you again.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. See you. Bye.